Welcome to e-commerce psychology, the deep dive, where we get into what makes your customers tick and, well, click.
Exactly.
And just so you know, this deep dive is powered by Growth Suite. Growth Suite helps you run really smart discount campaigns on your Shopify store.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty neat.
Definitely worth checking out. You can test it for free. Just find it on the Shopify App Store.
Good tool.
So, have you ever landed on an online store and instantly felt, yeah, I trust this place, while another one, maybe selling the exact same thing, just feels off?
Oh, absolutely. That immediate gut feeling or maybe that little warning sign. It's not random at all.
Right.
Today, we're really diving deep into the neuroscience behind that feeling.
Yeah.
Specifically, how trust works in e-commerce psychology.
We're going to look at what's actually firing in the brain when we decide, okay, I trust this brand or this product or even just a website interaction.
Yeah, and our main guide for this is a really insightful article, The Neural Correlates of Trust, Building Brain-Based Credibility E-commerce Psychology by Mohammed Tufekcipan.
Our mission, really, is to unpack the neurological nuts and bolts of trust.
Yeah.
We want you, the listener, to get a solid grasp on how credibility is, well, built inside the brain, so you can apply that ethically and effectively in your own e-commerce world.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So where do we start? Defining trust neurologically.
Yeah, let's start there. What does it actually mean in brain terms?
Okay, well, first thing to get is that trust isn't just, a vague feeling. It's an actual process. Your brain is actively calculating, evaluating whether it's safe to rely on something or someone.
Like a calculation.
In a way, yeah. And what's super interesting is that evolutionarily, our brains develop specific circuits just for making these quick judgments about trustworthiness.
Ah, the whole survival thing. Knowing who to trust in the group was pretty critical, I imagine.
Exactly. It's fundamental for social cooperation. And neuroscience shows something really cool. Trust and distrust aren't just opposites on one scale.
Oh,
Your brain often treats them as separate things, activating different neural networks for each. It's not just turning trust up and distrust down. It's more complex.
gotcha. Like flipping different switches, not just using a dimmer. Okay, so how does the brain actually make that trust decision? What's the biology?
Well, there are key chemicals involved.
Yeah.
Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, plays a role, makes us feel more open, more connected.
Right, I've heard of that one.
And then there's dopamine. That's linked to the reward system. It influences how secure we feel about a potential interaction or decision.
So oxytocin for openness, dopamine for feeling secure about the outcome.
Kind of, yeah. And these pathways, many of them were evolutionarily ancient. That's why we sometimes get that instant gut feeling it's these old systems making rapid assessments.
That almost instinctive reaction to a website design or a brand's message.
Precisely. But it's also worth remembering, people vary.
Mhm.
Some folks are just naturally more trusting than others. Genetics, personality, they both play a part.
Right, so my instant trust level might be different from yours, even looking at the same page. Okay, fascinating science, but let's ground this. For someone running an online store, why does this brain stuff matter? What's the actual impact?
It matters hugely. Understanding this brain-based trust gives you like a roadmap for building genuine reliability. It's not about trickery. It's about aligning your business practices with how trust actually forms in the customer's brain.
So it helps you build real trust, not just manipulate perceptions.
Exactly. This ties into neuroeconomics, the blend of neuroscience and economics. It helps us see how trust directly impacts buying decisions, loyalty, everything in e-commerce.
Okay, that makes sense. You can design the customer journey to actually foster that neurological trust.
Yes, you can be more intentional about it.
All right, so we know chemicals and old pathways are involved, but which parts of the brain are the main players in this trust game?
Okay, 7 key areas work together. Let's start with the prefrontal cortex, the front part of the brain.
The thinking part.
Yeah, the executive function hub. Specifically, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, or VMPFC. Think of it as the emotional brains manager. It weighs the emotional side of things to judge trustworthiness.
Emotional brains manager. I like that. What else in the prefrontal zone?
There's the dorsomedial prefrontal cortex that helps us figure out social stuff like other people's intentions. And the paracingulate cortex seems to check if behavior lines up with, trustworthy norms.
So different bits analyzing different angles of trustworthiness.
Kind of. And brain scans show different activity patterns in these areas depending on whether we're trusting or suspicious. It's like different teams light up.
Interesting. So the front of the brain is busy evaluating. What about the more primal parts, the emotional centers?
Right, the limbic system.
Yeah.
The amygdala is a big one. You often hear about it with fear.
Yeah, the fight or flight trigger.
Exactly. It's also key for detecting threats. If something feels off or unreliable online, the amygdala helps trigger that feeling of distrust. Think about a website with flashing virus warnings amygdala on high alert.
So bad design or security pop-ups could literally trigger a threat response.
Absolutely. Then you have areas like the septal region, which seems linked to more unconditional trust,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the deep trust you have for family,
Yeah.
maybe related to intense brand loyalty,
The diehard fan.
potentially,
Oh.
and the anterior insula that seems to bridge emotion and reason, weighing the potential risks of trusting. Really important for deciding about a new, unfamiliar online store.
Okay, so prefrontal cortex manages, limbic system provides the gut feelings and risk assessment. What about learning? How do we learn who to trust based on experience?
That's where the reward and learning systems kick in. When you trust something and it works out well, say, your online order arrives perfectly.
Yay, dopamine hit.
Exactly. The ventral tegmental area, or VTA, releases dopamine. It's a reward signal. Your brain learns, hey, that was good, trusting that was the right move.
It reinforces the behavior, but what about when trust is broken? Like the product is terrible or it never shows up?
Then the caudate nucleus gets involved.
Yes.
It monitors outcomes. If trust is violated, it helps adjust future trust levels downwards. It's part of learning not to trust unreliable sources again.
Learning from mistakes, basically.
Yep. And the striatum is involved in anticipating rewards from cooperation. So if you trust a brand, you might anticipate another good experience, motivating repeat business. It's all part of this constant trust learning loop.
Our brain's keeping score. Now, you mentioned conditional versus unconditional trust earlier. How does that play out neurologically in e-commerce?
Right. Conditional trust is based on conditions being met, like I'll trust this site because I see the padlock icon or because they have clear returns. Neurologically, this often links back to that VTA reward system trusting because you anticipate a good outcome based on these signals.
Makes sense. I see the safety signs, so I'll proceed.
Exactly. Unconditional trust is deeper, more ingrained. Think customer loyalty, someone who buys from a brand repeatedly without needing constant reassurance. This might activate areas like that septal region linked to bonding.
And can conditional trust become unconditional over time?
Absolutely. Consistent positive experiences can shift that initial conditional trust, I'll try them because they look okay, into something deeper, more automatic. I always buy from them.
So building that loyalty literally rewires trust in the customer's brain. Cool. Now, back to trust versus distrust. You said they're separate networks.
Yeah, it really seems that way. Distrust isn't just low trust.
So when we feel distrust online, say towards a scam site, it's not just the absence of trust signals, it's the active presence of distrust signals lighting up the amygdala.
That's a good way to think about it. High amygdala activity is a marker. Conversely, a really trustworthy online experience might involve what researchers call prefrontal limbic harmony. The thinking and feeling parts are nicely coordinated. It's an active state of feeling safe and engaged.
And this separation explains why someone might be on the fence, not trusting, but not actively distrusting either, just uncertain.
Exactly. They're in that middle maybe zone. Neither set of networks is strongly dominant yet.
Fascinating. Okay, what about how we gain trust? Direct experience versus just hearing good things. Earned versus reputed trust.
Big difference neurologically. Earn trust from your own positive experiences, like great service or perfect product, strongly engages those learning and reward circuits we talked about. The dopamine reinforcement wires it in.
That positive memory gets strongly encoded.
Right. Reputed trust based on reviews, endorsements, brand image. Initially, that relies more on your logic centers. You're evaluating external information. Okay, lots of people say this is good, so maybe it is.
More cognitive effort at first.
Yeah. But here's the interesting part. If you then have your own positive experiences after being drawn in by reputation, that reputed trust can solidify and become more like that internally wired earned trust over time.
So reviews get them in the door, but the actual experience seals the deal neurologically. Makes sense. Now, online, we often have so little to go on. How does the brain handle judging trust with just, like, a website design and a few sentences?
It's amazing, isn't it? We rely heavily on minimal cues. The visual appeal, the writing style, brand consistency, security symbols. Our brains seem to develop these digital trust circuits, getting good at picking up subtle signals from reviews, site navigation ease, things like that.
We become expert digital detectives without even realizing it.
Sort of, yeah. And when something feels off, dodgy design, weird grammar, claims too good to be true, distinct patterns emerge. Those prefrontal areas kick into high gear, trying to assess source reliability. It shows how much even small design choices matter.
Wow. Every little detail counts for those subconscious neural checks. Okay, let's focus on the source itself, the online store or brand. What's happening when we decide they are credible?
When assessing the store or brand's trustworthiness, areas like the VMPFC, that emotional manager, and the temporal parietal junction, which helps with understanding others' perspectives, are active,
So the brain's trying to gauge if the person behind the site seems trustworthy.
in a sense. And if it's a familiar, respected brand, you might see more activity in reward circuits, anticipating a good outcome. If something feels sketchy, like no contact info.
Then the amygdala or insula might light up, signaling caution.
Exactly. Caution, skepticism. It's your brain flagging potential risk based on source cues.
Okay, and what about the message itself? A
Yeah.
product description, the ad copy, how is that judged for credibility?
It's an interplay. If the message aligns with what you already believe or need, trust can form quickly. If it clashes or sounds exaggerated,
Doubt creeps in.
right? Neurologically, your emotional centers are weighing how it feels, while rational centers check consistency with known facts or experiences. The result of that internal debate determines if the message lands as credible.
Emotional check plus logic check, constant balancing act. So how can businesses use all this? What are the practical neuromarketing angles for building trust?
Well, neuromarketing studies brain responses to ads, packaging, websites. Understanding trust signals allows brands to be more authentic. For instance, highlighting ethical sourcing isn't just PR. It might genuinely tap into neural circuits related to positive values and trust.
So communicating values can build neurological trust.
It can contribute, yes, but, and this is crucial, it has to be authentic. Trying to manipulate these systems or being deceptive, that often backfires spectacularly. Trust is fragile.
Right, fake authenticity gets sniffed out, so don't try to trick the brain, work with it honestly.
Precisely. Long-term trust is built on genuinely being trustworthy.
Okay, so pulling it all together, can we create a kind of framework? Key takeaways from e-commerce business wanting to build this brain-based credibility.
Yeah, I think we can. First is cognitive emotional balance. You need both the rational stuff, clear info, guarantees, security, and the emotional cues, good design, positive reviews, empathetic support. Appeal to head and heart.
Got it. Both logic and feeling. What's next?
Second, reinforcement over time. Trust isn't a one-shot deal. It needs consistent positive experiences, reliable shipping, quality products, good communication. Every good interaction strengthens those trust pathways.
Consistency is key to wiring it in. Third.
Transparent communication.
Mm-hmm.
Be clear, honest upfront. No hidden fees, no misleading descriptions. Ambiguity triggers distrust alarms.
Makes sense. Avoid anything that feels sneaky. And finally,
Adaptation and personalization. Tailoring the experience design, messaging, recommendations to your specific audience shows you understand them. That feeling of being understood can really boost trust.
right. So balance logic and emotion, be consistently good, be transparent, and personalize where you can. It sounds like good business practice, but now we understand the why behind it neurologically.
Exactly. It aligns with how our brains are actually wired to build relationships and assess reliability.
This has been incredibly insightful, really understanding the sheer amount of brain processing that goes into a simple add-to-cart decision when trust is involved. It's mind-blowing.
It really is.
Yeah.
And grasping these principles, the prefrontal evaluation, the reward system's role, conditional versus unconditional trust, gives you such a powerful lens for refining your e-commerce approach.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up, just a reminder that this e-commerce psychology deep dive was powered by Growth Suite.
Great tool for those discount campaigns.
Definitely. Helps you run them smartly on your Shopify store. Check it out for free on the Shopify App Store.
So, thinking about all these neural pathways, here's a final thought to chew on. How might future tech, like, say, really immersive VR shopping experiences, change how these trust circuits operate? Could it enhance trust even more, or maybe introduce new ways to erode it?
Ooh, that's a big question. How virtual reality might tap into or maybe even bypass some of these evolved trust mechanisms. Definitely something to think about.